World Tier 2, as you'll get 15% more gold from monsters, as well as 20% more experience. The game is tuned pretty well, and World Tier 2 is worth the benefits listed. Also, you can always lower the difficulty in town if you're feeling it's too difficult or a boss encounter becomes too challenging. Choosing a class is never easy, but I would say pick the class that represents the playstyle that best fits you. The Barbarian gets up close and personal with his devastating melee attacks, coupled with his shouts that buff himself and his teammates. The Sorcerer is a classic spellcasting class who wields ice, fire, and lightning. The Necromancer is the main summoner class this time around, and is great for more beginner players, as its minions can help aid you in battle and draw aggro. Just be wary of the big bosses, as corpses can sometimes be hard to come by. The Druid is a hybrid class, who wields both elemental skills, can transform for melee attacks, and can summon wolves to aid them in battle. Finally, there's the Rogue, who is also a hybrid between quick melee dashing attacks and ranged attacks with their bow. Experiment around and see what fits your playstyle the best. The game will provide you with the ability to skip right to the end game on another character once you complete the campaign on your first playthrough, so don't feel like you're missing out if you're having a tough time choosing. The game removes barriers to entry and provides a ton of incentives to playing with multiple characters, especially as it expands with additional seasons of content. Make sure to synergize your skills by picking up the passive abilities that they have. These passive abilities really enhance the skill, so make sure to spend points there before picking another skill. Remember too that you'll only be able to use 6 skills actively, so don't spread your skill points everywhere. Respecking is a relatively low cost to start, so experiment and find what feels the best for you. Or if you get some new gear, respec to synergize with that piece of equipment. When analyzing your gear drops, don't equip simply based on the green or red plus and minus armor or damage. While a green item is usually better, especially with weapons early on, it's still important to take a look at the item in comparison to your current item to see what other benefits there are. The attributes on a red piece of gear could be way more beneficial to your character. These attributes include plus points to skills, critical damage, elemental damage, attack speed, critical strike, etc. If you're really trying to build an optimized character, keeping these attributes in mind is imperative. Diablo 4 removes the ability to view the world map as a transparent layer over top your gameplay, so you can still control your character whilst viewing it. However, pinning an objective marker on it gives you a nice red line on the minimap to indicate where to go, something you should frequently take advantage of. Altars of Lilith are littered throughout the map in various locations. There's a fair amount to find in each region. It's worth finding these altars as they will net you free passive bonuses from stat points like dexterity, strength, intelligence, as well as more health, and a higher capacity for murmuring obols, a currency we'll get into later in the video. Keep an eye out for these as you explore. However, if you want to save time, you can always go to gamespot.com, where we'll be putting up location guides for these altars. You'll also start to see dungeons appear on the map as you explore the regions in Sanctuary. Keep an eye out on the aspects of power these grant. Aspects of power are legendary effects that can be class-specific or available to all the classes. This is a great way to get a legendary quicker by imprinting this aspect on the appropriate gear. These aspects will generally enhance a skill that you're already using or one that you haven't tried out yet. Once you see a dungeon that has an aspect of power you think you'd like to use on your character, hop in there and beat it so you can imprint that power on a piece of your gear. One small pro tip, you can add the Leave Dungeon emote to your emote wheel. This makes getting out of dungeons quicker. A good aspect to get early on in your adventures is the aspect of Protection, which is found in the Lost Archives in Act 1. This legendary effect will give you a barrier of protection once you've damaged an elite minion or boss that absorbs X damage for 10 seconds every 30 seconds. If you want to imprint these items earlier on in your journey, you'll want to make sure you're salvaging your rares instead of selling them. Make sure to keep an eye out for ore deposits and herbs, as they'll be needed for crafting elixirs, as well as upgrading your potions, gems, weapons, and armor. Harvest them any chance you get. Speaking of upgrading your weapons and armor, the first few upgrades are relatively inexpensive, but I would be mindful that as you continue to progress through your journey early on, that you'll get newer pieces of gear that will probably replace your current gear, so be selective on upgrading your pieces. Upgrading does help increase your damage on your weapons and improve armor though, so if you're struggling with a boss or an encounter, upgrading could be the difference between winning and losing. The Alchemist will have a list of elixirs that you'll be able to make to help you in your battles through Sanctuary. The elixirs themselves last for 30 minutes, give you a buff, and also give you a 5% experience bonus. Since you'll probably have an abundance of herbs, it's probably worth making some just for the experience buff alone. There will be altars in the world where you'll be given a riddle, and in order to answer these riddles, you'll need to stand in the circle and perform an emote that answers the riddle. You'll receive a small limited time buff from these. Make sure you explore each region because, as you discover new areas, altars of Lilith, waypoints, side quests, dungeons, and strongholds, all of which will give you renown for the region. The rewards from improving your renown are not only given to the character that you're playing as, but any additional characters that you have or create in the future. There are 5 rewards total per region. The first reward is an additional skill point, the second is a +1 to potion capacity, the third is another additional skill point, the fourth is +80 to your Murmuring Obal's capacity, and the fifth is 4 Paragon points. Do note that the 4th and 5th renown upgrades require you to have beaten the game and unlock World Tier 3. The quickest way to level up to the 3rd renown upgrade is by completing all 3 strongholds in each region, as they each give you 100 renown points, which is 3/4 of the requirement to finishing the 3rd tier of renown. Be wary though. If you are playing on World Tier 2, that strongholds are usually a level or 2 above your current level, and generally have a strong boss at the end of them. As noted above though, if you're struggling, you can always lower the World Tier. Completing public events denoted by orange circles in the map will provide you with Murmuring Obals, which can be taken to the Purveyor of Curiosity to gamble for items. This is a great way to get legendary items. Your initial max capacity for Murmuring Obals is 500, but you'll be able to increase this down the road by increasing your renown in the regions, Lilith statues, and more. What I would suggest is to farm up to 300 to 500, then head back and focus on one piece of gear at a time. The cheaper pieces of equipment to gamble on are offhands, gloves, boots, pants, and helmets. Since these are only 40 obals each, I'd focus on upgrading those pieces first, since you'll get more mileage out of your obals. Any legendary earlier on will probably sustain you a good chunk of time, so upgrade that piece, then the next, and rinse and repeat. The Purveyor also sells Whispering Keys for 20 Murmuring Obals, which open up silent chests that you can find in the world. For me, I opened a few of these and never got anything more than a rare or two, so my advice would be to spend your obals on gambling instead of these keys. All that exploring would be a lot easier with a noble steed, and while the latest iteration of Diablo does provide mounts, unfortunately you will not acquire one till a while into the game. You'll visit the city of Kyovashad early in the campaign. There you'll come across